Hey everyone! Welcome back to the channel, where the weird, the wild, and the unexplained come to life. Today, we're diving deep into the shadows of history to uncover 10 forbidden artifacts too disturbing for science to explain. These aren't just old relics, they're objects so bizarre, so haunting, that even the brightest scientific minds are left scratching their heads. From objects defying logic to items wrapped in dark legends, these artifacts challenge everything we thought we knew about history and reality. Artifact number 10, the London Hammer, a 100-million-year-old tool that shouldn't exist. Imagine stumbling across a relic that completely defies everything you know about history, archaeology, and even geology. The London Hammer is exactly that kind of artifact, a bizarre, ancient hammer discovered encased inside a massive rock formation dated to be over 100 million years old. How did a modern-looking tool, made from iron and wood, end up embedded in stone that predates humans by tens of millions of years? This mysterious object has baffled scientists, historians, and skeptics alike since it was first brought to light. Today, let's dig deep into the story behind the London Hammer, exploring its discovery, the scientific controversies, and the jaw-dropping implications it raises about our understanding of human history and ancient civilizations. The discovery, a strange find in Texas. The London Hammer was discovered in the 1930s near the small town of London, Texas, by a couple named Max and Emma Hahn while they were out hiking along a creek bed. As they walked along the rocks, Max spotted something unusual sticking out of a chunk of limestone. When they broke open the rock, they found the unmistakable shape of a hammer inside. What made this discovery so strange was that the hammer looked modern, complete with a wooden handle and an iron head, similar to tools made in the 19th century. But it was encased inside rock that scientists later dated to be between 100 and 400 million years old, far older than any human artifact should be. Max and Emma preserved the hammer and eventually gave it to a local museum, where it caught the attention of researchers and collectors. Upon examination, the London Hammer looked like an ordinary tool. The handle was wooden, held firmly in place by an iron head, which had a shape and design common in industrial-era hammers. The key question: how did it end up inside solid rock formation that was supposedly hundreds of millions of years old? Rocks like limestone form very slowly over geological timescales, often from sediment deposits under prehistoric oceans. The rock surrounding the hammer contained fossilized marine creatures dating back to the Paleozoic era, a time long before humans evolved. If the hammer was truly embedded as the rock formed, it means the hammer predates humans by tens of millions of years. Scientific analysis and dating controversies. The age of the rock around the hammer was confirmed using standard geological methods, identifying fossils and sediment layers consistent with the Lower Cretaceous period or even earlier, roughly 100 to 400 million years ago. However, skeptics argue the hammer was a modern tool that somehow became lodged in a natural rock concretion or concretionary nodule that formed around it much more recently. Some geologists suggest the rock is not ancient bedrock but a mineral concretion, a hardening process that can happen around objects buried in sediment over thousands, not millions, of years. The issue of dating is central. If the rock is truly ancient, the hammer is an out-of-place artifact, OP-art, a tool far too advanced for its geological context. But if the rock is relatively young, the hammer is just a normal antique accidentally encased in rock. Out-of-place artifacts, what are they? The London Hammer is often cited alongside other mysterious objects called out-of-place artifacts, or OOP-arts. These are items found in contexts where they shouldn't exist, such as modern tools in prehistoric layers, advanced technology in ancient tombs, or anachronistic devices in archaeological digs. OOP-arts challenge the conventional timeline of human history and technological development, suggesting possibilities such as advanced ancient civilizations that predate known history, lost knowledge or forgotten technologies, interactions with extraterrestrial beings, errors or misinterpretations in dating methods. The London hammer fits perfectly into this category because its presence inside rock supposedly hundreds of millions of years old contradicts everything mainstream science teaches about when humans first appeared. Implications if the hammer is genuine. If the London hammer truly is millions of years old, it forces a radical rethinking of human history. Humans or human-like beings existed far earlier than thought. The accepted timeline places the emergence of Homo sapiens only about 300,000 years ago. Finding a man-made tool over 100 million years old would completely rewrite evolutionary history. Lost civilizations with advanced technology. Perhaps there was a highly advanced society millions of years ago, whose traces were erased by cataclysms or geological processes. The hammer could be evidence of technology far older than recorded history. Extraterrestrial intervention. Some suggest the hammer could be proof of ancient aliens visiting Earth, leaving behind artifacts and knowledge unknown to us. Problems with geological dating methods. If the rock's age is incorrect, it could mean our understanding of geology and stratigraphy has blind spots. Skepticism and alternative explanations. Most mainstream scientists remain skeptical of the London hammer's extraordinary claims, proposing more mundane explanations. Concretion formation. The hammer could have been dropped in a limestone deposit that later hardened around it, forming a concretion in thousands or tens of thousands of years rather than millions. Misinterpretation of the rock age. The rock containing the hammer might not be ancient bedrock but rather a younger concretionary mass. Hoax or misunderstanding. Some have speculated the hammer is a modern artifact that was inserted into rock to create a sensational story. Poor documentation. The discovery was never thoroughly documented or studied by professional archaeologists, leaving gaps and doubts about provenance. Examining the hammer today. The London hammer is currently housed at the Creation Evidence Museum in Texas, which advocates for alternative interpretations of history. Researchers there have preserved the hammer and shared it with the public, but it has never been rigorously analyzed by independent scientific bodies or mainstream archaeology. Photographs and X-rays of the hammer show a genuine tool inside the rock, but the context of its discovery remains unclear and controversial. Why this mystery endures. The London hammer fascinates because it strikes at the core of human curiosity, the desire to understand where we came from and how our ancestors lived. It questions whether the official history books tell the full story or if there are gaps filled with lost civilizations, unknown technologies, or even cosmic visitors. Its discovery evokes a classic mystery. How can an iron hammer exist embedded in rock millions of years old? Was the hammer forged by humans millions of years ago, or is it a modern tool encased in natural rock? Could there be forces or events we do not yet understand that explain such anomalies? Conclusion: the London hammer, a mystery that challenges science. In the end, the London hammer remains a stunning enigma. Whether it's a geological curiosity, an OOP art challenging timelines, or a misunderstood relic, it invites us to keep questioning, exploring, and seeking answers beyond the conventional. For those fascinated by the mysteries of ancient history, the London hammer is a perfect symbol, an artifact locked in stone, waiting to tell its story to those brave enough to listen. Artifact number 9, the crystal skulls, ancient technology, alien origins, or elaborate hoax? Imagine holding a skull in your hands, not one made of bone, but perfectly carved from a single block of crystal. It glows faintly under the light, with polished features, hollow eyes, and a strange, cold energy. Some say it's thousands of years old. Others claim it holds supernatural powers. And some insist it's not even human in origin. This is the mystery of the crystal skulls, a collection of bizarre and controversial artifacts that have fascinated archaeologists, mystics, conspiracy theorists, and scientists for decades. But are they ancient relics of a lost civilization, alien devices left behind by visitors from the stars, or simply well-crafted fakes from the 19th century? Let's dive deep into one of the most enduring and mysterious archaeological enigmas of our time, and uncover why the crystal skulls are too disturbing for science to explain. The discovery, the skull that started it all. The most famous crystal skull, often called the Mitchell-Hedges skull, was allegedly discovered in 1924 by Anna Mitchell-Hedges, the adopted daughter of British adventurer and archaeologist F.A. Mitchell Hedges. According to her story, the skull was found buried beneath a collapsed altar inside a ruined Mayan temple in Lebanton, Belize. The moment it was uncovered, legend has it, strange things began to happen. People felt dizzy, lights flickered, and animals refused to go near it. The skull was almost identical in size and shape to a real human skull, complete with a detachable jawbone. It was made from a single piece of clear quartz crystal, with no visible tool marks or evidence of modern carving techniques. It quickly gained a reputation not just as an ancient artifact, but as an object of immense power. But here's where it gets weird. The mystical claims, powers of the skulls. Over the decades, numerous myths and metaphysical claims have emerged around the crystal skulls. Some say they emit energy or sound, especially during celestial events. Others claim they are ancient computers capable of storing the knowledge of the universe. New Age believers suggest they can heal disease, balance chakras, or grant visions when meditated upon. Indigenous legends, including those from the Maya and some Native American tribes, speak of 13 crystal skulls scattered across the world. When united, they are said to reveal knowledge necessary to save humanity. Even the Mayan calendar and the 2012 doomsday prediction became entangled with the skull legends, leading some to believe the skulls had the power to reset or influence the future of the world. But is there any truth to these claims? And are the skulls even real ancient artifacts? The Crystal Skull Collection, more than just one. While the Mitchell Hedges skull is the most famous, there are at least a dozen other known crystal skulls. The British Museum skull, purchased in the 1890s, claimed to be Aztec. The Smithsonian skull, donated anonymously, but later questioned for authenticity. The Paris skull, Musée du Quai Branly, another 19th century acquisition, claimed to be from Mexico. The Max skull and Shah Na skull, popular in spiritual and New Age circles, often featured in meditation and healing events. Each skull is slightly different in material, size, clarity, and alleged origin, but they all share one key trait: they appear too perfect, too advanced, and too mysterious for the civilizations they are claimed to originate from. Science steps in, analyzing the skulls. In the 1990s and early 2000s, several crystal skulls were subjected to detailed scientific analysis, including those in the British Museum and the Smithsonian Institution. Here's what scientists found. Microscopic tool marks. Under high-powered microscopes, researchers found telltale signs of rotary wheels and modern abrasives, specifically silicon carbide and diamond-coated tools, which didn't exist before the late 19th century. Quartz source. The quartz used in many of the skulls likely came from modern European sources, not the mines used by ancient Mesoamerican civilizations. No proven archaeological context. None of the skulls were excavated in a professionally documented dig. Most were purchased through collectors or acquired anonymously, with vague or unprovable origin stories. In short, mainstream science considers the crystal skulls to be elaborate hoaxes or 19th century fakes, possibly created during a time of obsession with ancient Mesoamerican artifacts. But that hasn't stopped the legends. The skull that defies science? Despite widespread skepticism, the Mitchell Hedges skull still raises eyebrows, even among scientists. It is said to have no visible tool marks, a jaw that is perfectly hinged, optical channels cut into the cranium that refract light in unusual ways. Some researchers, including engineers from Hewlett-Packard, reportedly examined the skull in the 1970s and found that it was carved against the natural axis of the crystal, something extremely difficult to do even with modern tools, as it risks shattering the quartz. According to the report, there was no evidence of modern machining, leading some to speculate that the skull might have been created by lost technology, or something not of this world. However, these findings are controversial and have never been independently verified or published in peer-reviewed journals. The alien connection. Naturally, such mystery invites speculation far beyond traditional archaeology. Some alternative theorists and ufologists have suggested the crystal skulls are of extraterrestrial origin, with theories including Skulls left behind by ancient astronauts as data storage devices. Alien tools designed to amplify psychic abilities or interface with the mind. Artifacts of a lost Atlantean or Lemurian civilization with advanced technology. These theories gained mainstream popularity after the release of Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull in 2008, a film that linked the skulls to alien life forms and ancient Mayan temples. While entertaining, these ideas are widely rejected by academic historians. Still, they persist in online forums, books, and spiritual communities across the globe. Could they still be ancient? Here's the twist. Even if most skulls are 19th century forgeries, some researchers argue that the idea for them may have come from ancient prototypes or lost objects that no longer exist. Ancient Mesoamerican cultures did carve in crystal, obsidian, and jade. Skulls were powerful spiritual symbols to both Aztecs and Maya, representing death, rebirth, and transformation. Could there have once been true crystal skulls that inspired the fakes we see today? It's a compelling idea that the skulls we have are copies or misinterpretations of something real, sacred, and far older than we realize. Psychic experiences and the paranormal. Whether ancient or fake, the crystal skulls have a strange tendency to produce powerful psychological and paranormal reactions in those who interact with them. People report visions, dreams, and altered consciousness after spending time near the skulls. Some claim the skulls communicate with them or transmit knowledge telepathically. Others report strange effects on electronics, magnetic fields, or room temperature. Scientists typically attribute these experiences to the placebo effect, suggestibility, or environmental factors, but for believers, the experiences are real and transformative. A symbol of mystery itself. In the end, whether the crystal skulls are ancient artifacts, alien tech, or clever hoaxes, they've achieved something more powerful than simple explanation. They've become a symbol of the unknown, the forbidden, and the inexplicable. They raise questions science can't, or won't, answer. What if history isn't as linear as we believe? What if civilizations before us rose, advanced, and vanished? What if knowledge was lost, hidden, or protected in strange, glimmering skulls? Final thoughts. Too disturbing for science? The crystal skulls remain one of archaeology's most unsettling mysteries, not because of what they are, but because of what they could be. They challenge the boundaries between science and legend, fact and belief, reality and myth. And in a world where every answer seems one click away, the crystal skulls are a chilling reminder that some questions remain locked, deep in stone. And maybe that's exactly how it was meant to be. The alleged discovery. The story begins in 1938 when Chinese archaeologists, led by Professor Chi-Pu Ti, supposedly discovered hundreds of stone discs in caves in the Biancariola Mountains of China. These discs, approximately 12 inches in diameter, were said to have a central hole and a spiral groove, resembling ancient phonograph records. Alongside these discs, tiny skeletal remains with disproportionately large skulls, estimated to be around 4 feet tall, were also reportedly found, as were cave paintings depicting celestial bodies and humanoid figures. The controversial translation. Decades later, in the 1960s, a Chinese researcher named Dr. Tsumam Nui claimed to have deciphered the hieroglyphic-like grooves on the discs. His purported translation revealed a shocking narrative. The stones chronicled the crash landing of an extraterrestrial race, the Dropa, 12,000 years ago. According to the translation, the Dropa were unable to repair their spacecraft and were forced to coexist, often uneasily, with local tribes. Dr. Tsumam Nui's findings, however, were met with skepticism and, according to the narrative, he was subsequently ostracized from academia, with the stones themselves disappearing from public view. Hoax or hidden truth? The mystery surrounding the Dropa stones is compounded by several points of contention. Lack of verification. There is no independently verifiable record of Professor Chi-Pu Ti or Dr. Tsumam Nui in official historical or academic archives. Missing artifacts. The stones themselves are not held in any major museum, and their current whereabouts are unknown. This absence is a significant point for skeptics. Cold War propaganda. Some theories suggest the entire story could have been a fabrication, possibly as a form of Cold War-era propaganda. Hartwig Hausdorff's photographs. In 1974, German author Hartwig Hausdorff claimed to have photographed 2 of the stones in the Banpo Museum in Xi'an, China, which matched the descriptions. However, these stones too allegedly vanished shortly after his visit. Electromagnetic properties, reports, though unverified, also emerged from Soviet scientists who allegedly analyzed samples of the stones and found unusual electromagnetic properties, suggesting an artificial origin or unusual composition. Local legends. Adding another layer of intrigue are local legends in the region that speak of small, star people, who descended from the sky, seemingly echoing the Dropa narrative. The enduring mystery. Ultimately, the story of the Dropa Stones remains an unsolved enigma. Are they genuine artifacts providing evidence of ancient alien visitation? A lost chapter in human history? Intentionally suppressed? Or are they a meticulously crafted myth, designed to provoke, disturb, and fascinate? Until the physical stones can be thoroughly examined and their origins definitively traced, the Dropa Stones will continue to exist in the intriguing realm between fact and fiction. The Voynich Manuscript is an artifact that truly defies easy categorization, residing at the crossroads of cryptography, linguistics, botany, and historical mystery. It is, without a doubt, one of the most enigmatic books in human history. What is the Voynich Manuscript? At its core, the Voynich Manuscript is an ancient codex, a bound book, comprising around 240 vellum, calfskin pages. Its most striking features are: unknown script. The entire text is written in an unbroken sequence of an unknown writing system. It's not a known alphabet, cipher, or shorthand. The characters are fluid, often connected, and appear to follow some grammatical rules, yet they remain utterly unintelligible. Baffling illustrations. The manuscript is lavishly illustrated with detailed, often bizarre drawings. These illustrations can be broadly categorized into several sections. Botanical, the largest section, featuring drawings of plants that do not correspond to any known species on Earth, either living or extinct. They possess unusual root systems, fantastical flowers, and strange leaf arrangements. Astronomical/astrological, circular diagrams resembling celestial charts, zodiac signs, and cosmological representations, some with what appear to be stars, suns, moons, and galaxies, but often with peculiar arrangements and humanoid figures. Biological/balneological, nude or semi-nude miniature women, often depicted in intricate networks of pipes and pools, or connected by strange tubes and orifices. These sections are particularly perplexing. Cosmological, fold-out pages with complex, multi-page diagrams that are difficult to interpret but seem to represent cosmic or abstract concepts. Pharmaceutical, drawings of individual plant parts and what appear to be apothecary jars, indicating possible medicinal uses. Recipes/stars, a final section with blocks of text often marked by stars, or asterisks. Historical journey and dating. The known history of the Voynich Manuscript begins in the early 17th century, when it surfaced in the possession of Emperor Rudolf II of Bohemia, a renowned collector of esoteric items, who paid a considerable sum for it. It then passed through the hands of various alchemists, scholars, and collectors, including George Baresch and Jan-Marek Marcy. It was Marcy who sent the manuscript to Athanasius Kircher, a renowned Jesuit scholar and polymath in Rome, in 1666, hoping he could decipher it. Kircher, despite his expertise in hieroglyphics and ancient languages, was unable to make sense of it. The manuscript then seemingly vanished from public view for over 2 centuries, only to resurface in 1912 when Wilfrid Voynich, a Polish book dealer, acquired it from a Jesuit college in Frascati, Italy. It is from him that the manuscript derives its common name. For decades, the manuscript was held at the Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library at Yale University, where it was moved in 1969 and remains to this day. In 2009, radiocarbon dating conducted by the University of Arizona confirmed that the vellum on which the manuscript is written dates to between 1404 and 1438, placing its creation in the early 15th century. This disproved earlier theories that it was a modern forgery. Theories and interpretations. The mystery of the Voynich Manuscript has attracted cryptographers, linguists, historians, and amateur enthusiasts, leading to a multitude of theories. A hoax/elaborate forgery. Some believe it's an elaborate hoax, perhaps created in the 15th century to defraud someone, or even later. However, the sheer volume of text, its apparent internal consistency, statistical analysis of the language, shows properties consistent with natural languages, like Zipf's law, and the complexity of the illustrations make a simple hoax difficult to execute, especially without the aid of modern computing. The 2009 dating also makes a modern forgery impossible. A known language enciphered. This is a popular theory among cryptographers. It suggests the text is a known language, Latin, Hebrew, various European languages, encoded using a sophisticated cipher system. However, all attempts to crack it using traditional cryptographic methods, substitution ciphers, polyalphabetic ciphers, transposition ciphers, null ciphers, etc., have failed. The text shows no obvious repetitions or patterns that would indicate a simple cipher. A natural language written in a unique script. Another possibility is that it's a genuine natural language, perhaps a dialect or extinct language, written in a unique, invented script. The problem here is the complete lack of a Rosetta Stone or any parallel text-to-aid translation. An alchemical or medical text. The botanical and pharmaceutical sections strongly suggest a connection to herbal medicine or alchemy. However, the unknown plants and the peculiar, biological, drawings make it more than just a typical herbal. The Saqqara bird is a fascinating artifact that consistently sparks debate about ancient technology and the possibility of a forgotten understanding of aerodynamics in ancient Egypt. Discovered in 1898 during the excavation of the Pa-Diamond tomb in Saqqara, Egypt, it is now housed in the Museum of Egyptian Antiquities in Cairo. Description of the artifact. The Saqqara bird is a small, bird-shaped wooden object, measuring about 18 centimeters, 7.1 inches, in length, with a wingspan of approximately 18 centimeters, 7.1 inches. It is carved from sycamore fig wood, a common material in ancient Egypt, and weighs about 39 grams. Key features of the bird include proportionate wings. The wings are relatively thick at the center and taper towards the tips, similar to modern aircraft wings. They are set high on the body, consistent with a high-wing monoplane design. Missing tail. Critically, the bird lacks a horizontal tailplane, which is essential for stability in flight for most aircraft designs. However, it does have a vertical rudder-like piece where a tail would typically be. No landing gear. There are no discernible landing gear or any means to suggest it was meant to be propelled. Bird-like head. The front of the artifact is shaped like a bird's head, complete with eyes and a beak. Initial interpretation and context. When initially discovered, the Saqqara bird was catalogued as a bird figure, or a toy. Its context within the tomb of Pa-Diamond, an official from the Third Intermediate Period, c. 1070 to 664 BC, didn't immediately suggest any extraordinary purpose beyond that of a decorative or funerary item, possibly intended to symbolize a bird's flight to the afterlife or simply a child's plaything. The aerodynamic argument. The debate surrounding the Saqqara bird escalated significantly in 1971 when Dr. Khalil Messaha, an Egyptian physician and archaeologist, re-examined the artifact. Messaha, who also had an interest in aeronautics, was struck by its aerodynamic characteristics. He noted several features that, to him, suggested it was more than just a toy. Airfoil shape. Messaha argued that the wings possess an airfoil cross-section, a curved shape that generates lift, similar to modern aircraft wings. Dihedral angle. The wings are set with a slight dihedral, an upward angle from the horizontal, which contributes to lateral stability in flight. High aspect ratio wings. The wings are relatively long and narrow, a design often seen in gliders for efficient flight. Lack of a horizontal tail. While initially seen as a flaw, Messaha and others like aeronautical engineer Martin Gregory, who built and tested a replica, have suggested that the missing horizontal stabilizer could be explained if the bird was designed as a glider to be launched from a high point, or if a separate horizontal stabilizer, now missing, was once attached. Some even speculate that the vertical tail fin might have been part of a larger, more complex tail assembly. Messaha proposed that the Saqqara bird was a scale model of an ancient Egyptian aircraft, or at least a glider, demonstrating a sophisticated understanding of aerodynamics thousands of years before Leonardo da Vinci or the Wright brothers. He even built a balsa wood replica with a horizontal tail that he claimed flew remarkably well. Counterarguments and skepticism. Despite the intriguing aerodynamic arguments, many mainstream Egyptologists and aviation experts remain skeptical. Lack of supporting evidence. There is no other archaeological evidence, no texts, no murals, or any other artifacts that suggest ancient Egyptians had a practical understanding of flight or built flying machines. The Saqqara bird is a singular anomaly. Context as a funerary object, its discovery in a tomb strongly suggests a religious or symbolic purpose rather than a functional one. Many objects placed in tombs had symbolic meanings related to the afterlife, and birds often represented the soul or freedom. Basic bird representation. While it has some features that can be interpreted aerodynamically, it also shares many characteristics with common stylized bird representations from ancient Egypt, such as those found on furniture, jewelry, or as children's toys. The airfoil shape could be coincidental, a result of carving wood into a bird shape. Missing horizontal stabilizer. This is a major sticking point. Without a horizontal stabilizer, sustained controlled flight is extremely difficult, if not impossible, for such a design. The theory that one was simply missing is speculative. Alternative interpretations of the tail, the vertical rudder, could simply be the stylized tail feathers of a bird, or even a handle for a ceremonial object. Toy hypothesis. It's entirely plausible it was simply a well-crafted toy, and any aerodynamic properties are unintentional. Children's toys often mimic real-world objects or creatures. The Antikythera mechanism stands as one of the most astonishing archaeological discoveries ever made, fundamentally challenging our understanding of ancient Greek technological prowess. Far from a simple astrolabe, this complex device is now widely recognized as the world's first known analog computer, a testament to the advanced scientific and engineering capabilities of antiquity. Discovery and initial misunderstanding. The mechanism was discovered in 1901 by sponge divers exploring a Roman-era shipwreck off the coast of the island of Antikythera, Greece. The wreck, dating to around 70 to 60 BC, yielded a treasure trove of artifacts, including bronze and marble statues, pottery, and coins. Among these finds were several heavily corroded bronze lumps, which initially attracted little attention and were thought to be mere rocks or decorative pieces. It wasn't until 1902 when archaeologist Valerio Staes noticed a gear wheel embedded in one of the lumps that its true nature began to unfold. However, its immense complexity and significance were not fully appreciated for decades due to its heavily fragmented and corroded state. Description and functionality. Through painstaking research, X-ray tomography, and advanced imaging techniques, particularly in the early 21st century, scientists have pieced together the incredible sophistication of the Antikythera mechanism. It was originally housed in a wooden box, about the size of a shoebox, approximately 33 by 18 by 10 centimeters or 13 by 7.1 by 3.9 inches, with dials on its exterior and a complex array of interlocking bronze gears within. Its primary functions included astronomical predictions. It could accurately predict the positions of the Sun and Moon, as well as the 5 planets known to the ancients, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, against the backdrop of the zodiac. Eclipse prediction. It had a specialized dial to predict lunar and solar eclipses, incorporating the irregular motion of the Moon. This was achieved by modeling the Metonic cycle, a 19-year period after which the phases of the Moon recur on the same days of the solar year, and the Saros cycle, an 18-year, 11-day period for the recurrence of eclipses. Calendar tracking. It displayed various calendars, including a lunisolar calendar, Metonic cycle, an Olympic Games cycle, a 4-year cycle for ancient athletic events, and possibly a Calippic cycle, a 76-year period for further calendar refinement. Geared mechanism. The internal mechanism consisted of at least 30 precisely cut bronze gears, some rotating on the same axis but at different speeds, to simulate the complex, non-uniform motions of celestial bodies. The teeth of the gears were cut with remarkable precision, a feat of ancient machining. Differential gearing. A particularly astounding feature is the use of a differential gear assembly, a mechanism previously thought to have been invented in the 16th century for clocks. This allowed for the addition and subtraction of rotational speeds, crucial for modeling the varying speed of the Moon as it orbits Earth, due to its elliptical path. Construction and origin. The craftsmanship of the Antikythera mechanism is astounding. The gears were likely cut by hand using files and possibly a form of ancient lathe. The bronze alloy used was of high quality. While the exact creator is unknown, it is widely attributed to Greek scientists of the Hellenistic period. Evidence suggests it was built in the late 2nd century BC, possibly between 150 and 100 BC. The consensus points to a school or workshop from Rhodes as a likely origin, particularly associated with the astronomer Hipparchus, c. 190 to 120 BC, or his followers, given his known work on planetary motions and eclipse prediction. Archimedes of Syracuse, c. 287 to 212 BC, has also been suggested as a possible influence, or even a designer of a similar precursor, though this is speculative. The inscriptions on the mechanism are in Koine Greek, providing operational instructions and astronomical terms. The anachronism problem. The Antikythera mechanism is often described as an out-of-place artifact, or an anachronism because its level of complexity and precision was not seen again in clockwork mechanisms until the 14th century AD, when mechanical clocks began to emerge in Europe, and specifically the 16th century with the reinvention of the differential gear. For over a millennium after its creation, there is no known record or surviving example of a machine of comparable sophistication. This technological gap poses a significant question: how did ancient Greeks achieve such a feat, and what happened to this advanced knowledge? Possible explanations for the gap include loss of knowledge, the decline of the Hellenistic period, political instability, and the destruction of libraries, like Alexandria, could have led to the loss of advanced scientific and engineering treatises. Artifact number 4, the Pierie Reis Map. A map from 1513 that shows parts of Antarctica before it was discovered or even covered by ice. How did they get this information? Was there a lost civilization with advanced knowledge? Go in depth. The Pierie Reis Map is one of the most debated and perplexing artifacts in cartographic history, often cited as evidence of lost ancient knowledge or even extraterrestrial intervention. Compiled in 1513 by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer Pierie Reis, this world map, or Bari, is remarkable for its apparent depiction of geographical features that were supposedly unknown at the time, most notably a landmass that strikingly resembles the coast of Antarctica, and crucially, showing it free of ice. What is the Pierie Reis Map? The Pierie Reis Map is a fragment of a larger world map drawn on gazelle skin. It is currently housed in the Topkapi Palace Library in Istanbul, Turkey. It shows parts of the western coast of Africa, the eastern coast of South America, and the northern coast of Antarctica, as well as the Atlantic Ocean. Inscriptions on the map by Pierie Reis himself indicate that it was compiled from about 20 different source maps, including 8 maps from the time of Alexander the Great, an Arab map of India, 4 new Portuguese maps of the Indian Ocean and China, and, most controversially, a map drawn by Christopher Columbus, which Pierie Reis claimed to have personally used. Pierie Reis states that he drew his map from data that was taken from ancient maps, and from maps that were drawn in the days of Alexander the Great. He specifically mentions that no one has seen a map like this in this world. The controversial Antarctic depiction. The most puzzling aspect of the Pierie Reis map is its depiction of a southern landmass. This landmass, positioned below the southern tip of South America, exhibits features that bear a striking resemblance to the coastline of Queen Maud Land and Princess Martha Coast in Antarctica. The core of the controversy lies in two main points. Antarctica's discovery. Antarctica was not officially sighted until 1820, by Fabian Gottlieb von Bellingshausen or Edward Bransfield, depending on the account, and its coastline was not properly mapped until the 20th century. How could a 1513 map depict it? Ice-free Antarctica. Even more astonishing is the map's apparent depiction of this coastline without its ice cap. Geological evidence suggests that this part of Antarctica was last ice-free around 6,000 to 12,000 years ago, at the end of the last ice age. Theories and interpretations. The enigma of the Pierre Rees map has spawned several intriguing, and often speculative, theories. Lost ancient civilization, the most popular theory, championed by authors like Charles Hapgood in his 1966 book Maps of the Ancient Sea Kings, suggests that the Pierre Rees map is a copy of much older maps, which themselves were based on surveys conducted by an advanced, but now lost, ancient civilization. This civilization would have possessed sophisticated navigational and cartographic techniques, capable of charting coastlines, including those of an ice-free Antarctica. Hapgood even proposed that this civilization might have had knowledge of spherical trigonometry, enabling them to project parts of a spherical Earth onto a flat map with remarkable accuracy for its time. Preglacial surveys. This theory posits that the original source maps were made by humans who lived during a period when parts of Antarctica were indeed free of ice. This pushes the origins of advanced cartography back to the last ice age, an idea that challenges conventional archaeological timelines for complex societies. Extraterrestrial influence. A more extreme speculation suggests that the information could have been derived from non-human sources, i.e., extraterrestrial beings with the ability to survey the Earth from above. This remains purely speculative. Conflation and coincidence. Mainstream scholars and skeptics offer more conventional explanations. Terra Australis Incognita. Many medieval and early modern maps included a hypothetical southern continent, Terra Australis Incognita, based on the ancient Greek idea of a necessary landmass in the south to balance the land in the north. The Pierre Rees map's southern landmass could simply be a sophisticated interpretation of this mythical continent, rather than an accurate depiction of Antarctica. Misinterpretation of existing data. The coastline attributed to Antarctica might actually be a misinterpretation or extension of the South American coast, perhaps due to mapping errors, distortions inherent in the projection method, or a conflation of different landmasses known at the time, e.g., parts of the Falkland Islands or other subantarctic islands. Columbus's lost map. The claim by Pierre Rees that he used a map by Columbus, now lost, is intriguing. Columbus himself was exploring the Caribbean and South America. While he never reached Antarctica, his expeditions pushed the boundaries of known geography, and perhaps a more complete map of his discoveries, or even speculative additions based on his findings, formed a part of Pierre Rees's sources. Rum lines and portolan charts. The map uses portolan chart characteristics, with a network of rum lines originating from various compass roses. While excellent for navigation, these lines can introduce distortions when projecting large spherical areas onto a flat surface. Scientific and cartographic analysis. Modern cartographers and geologists have analyzed the map with varying conclusions. Some have argued that the fit with the Queen Maud Land coast is too precise to be coincidental. Others contend that the apparent accuracy is a result of selective interpretation, emphasizing similarities while overlooking discrepancies, and that given the vastness of the region, some coincidental resemblance is statistically probable. The map's projection method also plays a crucial role. Pierre Rees's map uses a projection that distorts distances and shapes towards the edges, a common feature of maps from that era. Trying to perfectly overlay it with a modern map is problematic without knowing the exact projection method used for its source maps. Conclusion: a persistent enigma. The Pierre Rees map remains an archaeological and cartographic enigma. While the most extraordinary claims, of advanced ancient civilizations charting ice-free Antarctica, lack direct, verifiable evidence beyond the map itself, the map's existence does force us to acknowledge that some cartographic knowledge of the early 16th century was remarkably advanced, perhaps more so than conventional history gives credit for. Whether it's a testament to lost ancient knowledge, a brilliant but accidental depiction based on existing, but misunderstood, data, or a combination of various sources that coincidentally created an uncanny resemblance, the Piri-Reis map continues to fuel speculation and inspire awe. It reminds us that history is not always a linear progression of discovery, and that there may be forgotten chapters of human achievement waiting to be fully understood. The Baghdad Battery, also known as the Parthian Battery, is one of the most intriguing and debated artifacts in the field of out-of-place artifacts, OP art. Its discovery has led to widespread speculation about the technological capabilities of ancient civilizations, particularly concerning the use of electricity. Discovery and description. The artifact was discovered in 1938 by German archaeologist Wilhelm Koenig in the village of Qiyut Rabbe, near Baghdad, Iraq, during the excavation of a Parthian-era village, Parthian Empire, c. 247 BC, 224 c. The specific archaeological context suggests it dates to sometime between 250 BC and 660 c, though its exact age is still debated. The battery consists of a clay jar, earthenware pot, roughly 13 centimeters, 5 inches tall. A copper cylinder inside the jar, made of a rolled-up copper sheet. An iron rod inserted into the copper cylinder, suspended in the middle and capped with bitumen, asphalt, to insulate it from the copper. Traces of corrosion and acidic residue, like vinegar, wine, or citrus juice, were found inside, suggesting the presence of an electrolyte. The battery hypothesis. Wilhelm Koenig himself was the first to propose that the artifact was an ancient electrical battery. His theory was based on the principles of a simple voltaic pile. If an acidic or alkaline liquid, an electrolyte, were poured into the jar, the copper and iron would act as electrodes, creating an electrochemical reaction that would generate a small electric current, typically around 0.8 to 2 volts, depending on the electrolyte. Experimental archaeology. Since Koenig's hypothesis, numerous replicas of the Baghdad battery have been constructed and tested by various scientists and hobbyists. When filled with common ancient electrolytes like grape juice, vinegar, or even corrosive salts, these replicas consistently produce a small electrical current. This experimental evidence strongly supports the feasibility of the Baghdad battery as a galvanic cell. Proposed uses for an ancient battery. If the Baghdad battery was indeed an electrical device, its potential applications in the ancient world are a matter of intense speculation, as no large-scale electrical infrastructure or devices have been found from that period. Electroplating/gilding. This is one of the most popular theories. Ancient artisans were skilled in gilding objects with thin layers of gold or silver. Traditional methods involved hammering thin sheets of metal onto surfaces. However, electroplating would allow for much finer and more even coatings. Some ancient artifacts show surprisingly thin and uniform gold layers that could, theoretically, have been achieved through electroplating. Argument for the ability to apply thin, aesthetically pleasing metallic coatings would have been highly valued. Argument against no clear archaeological evidence of electroplated objects from that specific period has been definitively identified. Most gilding can be explained by fire gilding, using mercury amalgam, or foil application. Acupuncture/pain relief. Small electrical currents are known to have analgesic effects. The battery could have been used in medical contexts, perhaps by applying electrodes to the body for pain relief or to stimulate muscles. Argument for ancient medical texts describe various forms of pain relief. Argument against lack of direct evidence or descriptions of such a practice. Religious/mystical applications. The shock from a small current could have been used to create an aura miraculous effect in religious ceremonies or rituals. For example, a hidden battery connected to a metal statue could give the impression of divine power when touched. Argument for priests often use technology to enhance religious experiences. Argument against pure speculation without specific textual or archaeological backing. Novelty/curiosity. It might have simply been a scientific curiosity or a novelty item, not intended for practical application, much like early static electricity generators in the Enlightenment period. Lighting. While a single battery produces very little voltage, multiple batteries connected in series could increase the voltage. However, to produce enough light for practical illumination, e.g., to power a filament lamp, hundreds, if not thousands, of such batteries would be needed, along with a conductive filament, for which there is no evidence. Unrelated purpose. It's also possible that it was used for a non-electrical purpose entirely, and its battery-like structure is coincidental. For instance, some suggest it was a container for scrolls, or a storage vessel for certain chemicals, with the metal components serving a different, unknown function. Counterarguments and skepticism. Despite the compelling experimental results, the Baghdad battery theory faces significant skepticism from mainstream archaeologists and historians. Lack of contextual evidence. The most significant argument against the battery theory is the complete absence of other electrical components, wires, switches, other batteries, in series, devices to be powered, found at the site or anywhere else from the period. A single battery without anything to connect it to or power is less convincing. No written records. There are no ancient texts, diagrams, or instructions from the Parthian or Sasanian periods that describe the production or use of electricity. Alternative explanations. Storage jar for scrolls. Some scholars propose it was a storage vessel for sacred scrolls, possibly papyrus, which would have been rolled up and placed inside the copper cylinder, with the bitumen sealing the top. The iron rod could have been a spindle or core. The acidic residue might have been from the decomposition of organic material. Medical device, not electrical. It could have been used for non-electrical medical purposes, such as an instrument for preparing specific medicines, with the metals reacting to create compounds, not current. Metal manufacturing/processing. The metals might have been part of an industrial process not related to electricity. Conclusion: a persistent enigma. The Baghdad battery remains a captivating enigma. While experimental archaeology has demonstrated its potential to generate electricity, the lack of corroborating archaeological evidence for its actual use as a battery for practical applications leaves its true purpose shrouded in mystery. Is it compelling evidence of an overlooked technological sophistication in ancient Mesopotamia? Or is it a case of modern interpretation being projected onto an ancient artifact whose function was entirely different? Until more conclusive evidence emerges, perhaps another similar device found with clear associated electrical components or definitive written instructions, the Baghdad battery will continue to be a potent symbol of the enduring questions about the lost knowledge and capabilities of the ancient world. The Shroud of Turin is arguably the most intensely studied and controversial relic in human history. It is a linen cloth, measuring approximately 4.4 meters, 14.5 feet, long by 1.1 meters, 3.7 feet, wide, that bears the faint, yellowish image of a man, front and back, who appears to have suffered severe physical trauma consistent with crucifixion. Believed by many to be the burial cloth of Jesus Christ, its authenticity and the inexplicable nature of the image's formation have been subjects of relentless scientific inquiry, theological debate, and popular fascination for centuries. Historical claims and provenance. The history of the shroud is fragmented and debated before the mid-14th century. Early mentions, debated supporters point to possible earlier references to an image of Christ, such as the Mandelion, or image of Edessa, suggesting a continuous lineage. However, these connections are highly speculative and lack definitive proof. First undisputed appearance, 14th century. The shroud's documented history begins in the mid-1350s in Eerie, France, in the possession of Geoffrey de Charny, a French knight. It was later acquired by the House of Savoy in 1453, who eventually moved it to Turin, Italy, in 1578, where it has remained, largely uninterrupted, ever since. It is currently housed in the Royal Chapel of the Turin Cathedral. The image, an unexplained phenomenon. The most extraordinary aspect of the shroud is the image itself. It is not painted or dyed in the conventional sense. Superficiality. The image is incredibly superficial, residing only on the topmost microfibers of the linen threads, a layer roughly 40 to 200 nanometers thick. This is one of the most puzzling features, as no known medieval painting technique could achieve such a shallow impregnation without bleeding into the underlying fibers. Non-directional and non-brush stroke. There are no brush strokes, directionality, or pigment evident in the way one would expect from a painting. The image appears to be formed by a subtle dehydration and oxidation of the cellulose fibers. Negative image. The image is a negative, meaning dark areas on the shroud correspond to light areas on the body it supposedly enveloped, and vice versa. This was not fully appreciated until the first photograph of the shroud was taken in 1898 by Secondopia, revealing a striking, lifelike positive image on the photographic plate. This negative quality is highly unusual for an ancient artifact and lends itself to modern interpretations. 3D information. The intensity of the image directly correlates with the distance between the cloth and the body, essentially encoding three-dimensional information. When projected onto a 3D model, the image creates a remarkably coherent relief, a feature inexplicable by traditional painting methods. Scientific investigations. The STIRP Project, 1978. The most extensive scientific study of the shroud was conducted in 1978 by the Shroud of Turin Research Project (STIRP). This team of over 30 U.S. scientists, including physicists, chemists, photographers, and forensic experts, was granted unprecedented access to the shroud for 120 hours of direct examination. STIRP's key findings included: not a painting, their conclusion was definitive. We can conclude for now that the shroud image is that of a real human form of a scourged, crucified man. It is not the product of an artist. The image is a surface phenomenon only. It is not a paint stain or pigment. Presence of blood. They identified human blood, type AB, on the shroud, consistent with wounds from scourging, crown of thorns, piercing, and a spear wound. No directionality of paint. They found no evidence of brushstrokes or application of pigment. Unexplained image formation. Despite ruling out artistic creation, the STIRP scientists could not definitively explain how the image was formed. Their final statement declared it a mystery. The carbon-14 dating, 1988. A major turning point in the scientific debate came in 1988 when 3 independent laboratories, Oxford, Zurich, and Arizona, conducted radiocarbon dating tests on small samples taken from the shroud. All 3 laboratories concluded, with 95% confidence, that the linen dated to between 1260 and 1390 AD. This result strongly suggested the shroud was a medieval artifact, contradicting claims of its ancient origin, and thus its authenticity, as Christ's burial cloth. Rebuttals to carbon-14 dating and ongoing debates. The 1988 C14 dating, while highly significant, did not end the controversy. Critics and shroud proponents have offered several arguments to challenge its conclusiveness. Sample contamination/repair. The most common argument is that the samples tested in 1988 were not representative of the original cloth. It is known that the shroud underwent medieval repairs, particularly after a fire in 1532. Some suggest the samples might have come from these medieval patches, or were contaminated by bacterial growth, fungal activity, or medieval cleaning processes that could have introduced newer carbon. Reweaving theory. Textile experts have posited that medieval reweavers might have expertly rewoven newer cotton or linen threads into damaged areas of the original fabric, making the C14 date inaccurate for the whole cloth. Fire contamination. The 1532 fire, and subsequent water dousing, might have introduced contaminants that skewed the C14 date. Unique image formation mechanism. If the image was formed by a unique physical process, e.g., a burst of radiation during the resurrection, as some propose, this process itself might have altered the carbon isotopes in the linen, leading to an artificially younger date. This is highly speculative, and not supported by known physics. Historical discrepancies. Shroud proponents argue that the gap in the shroud's documented history before the 14th century is not definitive proof against earlier existence, citing possible hiding or secretive transmission. How was the image formed? Unanswered questions. The central enigma remains: if it's not a medieval painting, as STIRP concluded, and if the C14 dating is accurate, How was the image formed in the medieval period? No known medieval technology or artistic technique can replicate its unique characteristics: superficiality, negative quality, 3D information, lack of pigment/directionality. Vaporography/chemical reaction. Some propose that the image was formed by a chemical reaction between the body, perhaps with volatile compounds from decomposition or ointments, and the linen, but this has not been successfully replicated to match all features. Radiation/energy burst, the most dramatic and religiously charged theory, often linked to the resurrection, suggests an instantaneous burst of light or energy from the body, scorching the superficial fibers of the cloth. This remains in the realm of faith and lacks scientific validation for such a phenomenon. Unknown natural process. It's conceivable that an as yet undiscovered natural physical or chemical process could have created such an image. Conclusion: a scientific and spiritual conundrum. The Shroud of Turin remains an extraordinary artifact, a unique blend of scientific mystery and profound religious significance. The seemingly contradictory evidence, scientific analysis ruling out painting versus carbon dating suggesting medieval origin, creates an ongoing, fervent debate. Whether it is the actual burial cloth of Jesus Christ or a remarkably sophisticated and inexplicable medieval creation, its ability to generate a 3D negative image with no discernible pigment remains a scientific puzzle. The shroud challenges our understanding of historical technology and forces us to confront the limits of our current scientific explanations. It is, undeniably, an artifact that science still cannot fully explain. The Sumerian king list is one of the most enigmatic and intriguing ancient Mesopotamian texts, presenting a chronological record of kings from Sumer, ancient southern Mesopotamia, and their supposed reigns. While invaluable for reconstructing early Mesopotamian history, its most striking and perplexing feature is the extraordinarily long reigns attributed to the kings who ruled before a great flood. These reigns are often described in terms of tens of thousands of years, leading to intense debate about their literal interpretation and true significance. What is the Sumerian king list? The Sumerian king list is an ancient cuneiform text, a clay tablet, that catalogues the kings of Sumer, and later Akkad, from the beginning of kingship, tracing their lineage through various city-states, and noting the duration of their reigns. Several versions of the list exist, found at various archaeological sites, but the most complete and well-known is the Wellblundell Prism, housed in the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford. The text is structured chronologically, moving from one ruling city to another as kingship was said to be transferred by divine will. It typically starts with, "After the kingship descended from heaven, the kingship was in Eridu. In Eridu, Alulim became king. He ruled for 28,800 years. Alauga ruled for 36,000 years. And so on, for several antediluvian, pre-flood kings. The two distinct eras, antediluvian and post-diluvian. The most critical aspect of the Sumerian king list is its division into two distinct periods, separated by a catastrophic event. Antediluvian kings. Before the flood, this section lists 8, or sometimes 10, depending on the version, kings who ruled before the flood swept over, and after the kingship descended from heaven, a second time. These kings are credited with astonishingly long reigns, ranging from 18,600 to 43,200 years. The total duration of this antediluvian period spans hundreds of thousands of years. Examples: Alulim, 28,800 years, Alaugar, 36,000 years, and Menluana, 43,200 years. Post-diluvian kings. After the flood. Following the mention of the flood, the list resumes with kings ruling for much more plausible, though still sometimes lengthy, durations. These reigns gradually decrease to more historically verifiable lengths, aligning with archaeological and historical records from later periods. Examples: Gilgamesh, a legendary king of Uruk, said to have ruled for 126 years, is mentioned in this section, and later kings have reigns of decades rather than millennia. The problem of the antediluvian reigns, myths or reality? The core mystery of the Sumerian king list lies in the fantastically long reigns of the antediluvian kings. This has led to several interpretations. Symbolic or mythological reigns. This is the most widely accepted academic view. Scholars generally believe that the exaggerated reigns of the antediluvian kings are not meant to be literal chronological durations, but rather symbolic representations of divine rules/idealized past. These kings represent an era when rulers were closer to the gods, possessing immense power and longevity, symbolizing a golden age or a time of direct divine influence. The extremely long reigns might reflect the divine nature of kingship itself, which was believed to have descended from heaven. Dynastic stability/legitimacy. The lengthy reigns could also serve to legitimize the institution of kingship by portraying an unbroken, ancient lineage chosen by the gods. Numerical allegories. Mesopotamian societies often used numbers symbolically. The vast numbers might be part of a sophisticated numerical system with hidden meanings related to astronomical cycles or cosmological beliefs, rather than literal years. For example, 3600 is a SAR in the sexagesimal, base 60, system, often associated with a very long period or totality. Actual beings with extended lifespans, pseudoscientific/fringe theories. This interpretation takes the reigns literally, suggesting that the antediluvian kings were non-human or semi-divine beings, perhaps gods, aliens, or a distinct, long-lived race that ruled humanity in its early stages, as depicted in ancient astronaut theories, e.g., by Zecharia Sitchin, who linked them to the Anunnaki. Hyper-advanced lost civilization. Some theories suggest these kings were leaders of a highly advanced civilization whose technology allowed for extended lifespans or who recorded time in a different way. Changes in human physiology. A less common idea suggests that early humans genuinely had much longer lifespans that dramatically decreased after the flood event. Units of time misinterpretation. Another theory suggests that the years, Sumerian, mu, mentioned might refer to different, much shorter units of time, or perhaps cycles, that have been misinterpreted as literal solar years. However, the consistent use of the same term for later, verifiable reigns makes this less likely. The flood narrative and connection to other texts. The mention of a great flood that sweeps over the land is a crucial element of the Sumerian king list, drawing parallels with other ancient Mesopotamian flood myths, like the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Atrahasis epic, and famously, the biblical narrative of Noah's Arkansas. This suggests a common cultural memory of a catastrophic deluge, whether localized or widespread, that marked a significant turning point in human history. The king list places this event squarely between the mythical age of divine rule and the more historically grounded age of human kings. Historical value. Despite its fantastical elements, the Sumerian king list is a vital historical document. The post-Diluvian sections, especially those listing the kings of the first dynasty of Ur, Lagash, and other city-states, show increasing consistency with archaeological findings and inscriptions. It provides a framework for understanding the sequence of ruling dynasties in Mesopotamia, even if the precise lengths of early reigns remain questionable. It reflects how the Sumerians themselves perceived their history, blending mythical origins with historical succession. Conclusion: a chilling mystery. The Sumerian king list remains a captivating, chilling mystery. While academic consensus leans towards a symbolic interpretation of the antediluvian reigns, the sheer scale of the numbers and their deliberate inclusion continue to fuel alternative theories. It prompts profound questions. What did the Sumerians truly believe about these ancient rulers? Was there a deep-seated oral tradition that these extreme numbers reflect, even if not literally? Does it hint at a forgotten prehistory, perhaps of powerful figures or non-human entities that shaped early human civilization? Ultimately, the Sumerian king list is a powerful reminder of how ancient societies intertwine myth, history, and cosmology to explain their origins and legitimize their rulers. It challenges us to look beyond literal translations and consider the deeper cultural, religious, and philosophical meanings embedded in these extraordinary ancient texts.